Er spricht auf internationalen Konferenzen wie der UNO-Generalversammlung. Er spricht in Harvard beim weltweiten Klimawandelgipfel. Er hat Persönlichkeiten wie Nelson Mandela, Michael Gorbatschow, den Dalai Lama, Papst Johannes Paul und Papst Franziskus getroffen. Seine Aufgabe hat ihn in 60 Ländern der Welt geführt. Ich spreche von Angaangaq, der Grönland-Schamane, mit dem ich gleich sprechen werde. Angaangaq, thank you for being here. Welcome.
I'm so happy to meet you, Barbara. Oh, oh, Thank you so much for allowing me to do that. When you get together, you and I, we should say thank you to the Great One. So I'm very happy that I met you, and then that I say thank you to the Great One, and I pray that our togetherness would lead to something good for many people.
You are an elder of the shamans in Greenland. How did you become an elder, and what does it really mean?
It's an indigenous tradition, and now I have learned that all over the world, indigenous people have the same tradition as we have at home. I am from the very top of the world in Greenland, or coming down to South Africa and down to South America, and in the Far East in China and Japan. I realized, and up in Siberia, I realized we all have same tradition of recognizing elders. Elder does not mean an old person. That person represents some capacity within that person which can engulf everyone into one. So I was asked to be an elder when I was 42 years old by the Ojibwe tribe of southern Ontario, Canada. I've been giving talks in my native community, and I went to a big jail where one of the native people was working. So he'd been telling his family that he met uncle, that's what people call me. And then the community invited me to come to their village, to their reservation. So, and they wanted me to be their elder. I was all black hair, and I almost smiled. I never expected to be asked to be an elder. I'm so happy that I did not smile. I did not want to put them down. I wanted to honor the request. And they gave me a beautiful gift, something like that. And I knew in my tradition, if I opened the gift, then I would take on the responsibility of being elder. So I told them, I'm so honored that you asked me, but I will go home to my mother and ask for advice. So I flew to Greenland from Toronto, and I presented the gift to my mother and said, they want me to be their elder. So she took it and she smelled it and then turned around and she gave it back to me and says, you're just gonna have to learn to grow up to it and become worthy of being an elder. So I said, say it again, because I want to understand properly. And she looked at me and she said, my son, you're just gonna have to learn to grow up to it and become worthy of being an elder. So I flew back to Ojibwe country with my gift. And my wife was there, and my old son was there. And then in front of all these people, I opened the gift. And thus I became the elder. They had seen, according to the man who saw me in a big jail, working with native inmates, he says that you dealt with them with respect, even though they were criminals, some of them murderers, or you treated them with respect and you taught them the basic skill to understand themselves better. I just do that because that's the way I was trained to be. But he saw that, and he told his elders who asked me to be the elder. So I've been an elder for a long, long time. Now I'm 73 years old, and now I have become elder for many, many tribes around the world. Am I a good elder? I don't know, but I love my work. I love my work as an elder. Now that I am the oldest one in my entire family of my grandmother, and just 2 weeks ago, I became the oldest one in my grandfather's family, my father's father. My uncle died 89 years old. So now I'm the oldest one of my father's family. So, and I have no other elders. So now my life has changed because I'm so used to asking other elders what to do. I don't know if you knew that, but I have traveled a lot. I have never gone anywhere in the world without being invited first. But now I have worked in 73 countries. So that means that they have seen me and then invited me and asked me to work with them, which I have done. And I did that because that's how I was told to be. I should never go anywhere without being invited. So I kept that. I've been to many other countries with airplanes had to stop over, and then but they don't count. Only 73 countries where I worked. So it's really interesting that now all of a sudden I have no other elders to turn to. Now I had to really learn to grow up to it and become worthy of being an elder. His job is to listen and look at your energy and look beyond your eyes or your head or your body, look into your spirit and see how I can personally can help, assist, and guide you to a better path. And as you know, you and I, we have many, many choices in our life. We have many, many choices. Nobody teaches us how we can choose the better path for us. That's why you and I, we have made so many mistakes in our lives. We think this is better way than this one. So we walk this way and it's too difficult, so we jump over there without completing the path. We jump over there because it looks much easier. And then I meet you and your life looks so much easier than mine. So I jump to your path. And the old people say, you cannot do that. You and I, we cannot jump into somebody else's shoes and walk their path. Our idea, you and me, is that we walk all the way out to the very end. And there we come home to us. You come home to you. And when you come home to you, then you can go to the next level. And then now I have learned that the next level in ancient tradition is a new consciousness in the modern language. And you and I, all of us, we have been looking for that new consciousness, new awareness about ourselves, about the world we live in. It's really interesting to work like that with so many people. And it's so interesting at home where so many people contact me and ask for help, assistance, and guidance. And it's so interesting what people tell me about how they want to be helped and assisted and guided. So that's what I do for a living. And I have lived such an incredible life when I think back. I have been privileged with so many things in the world. So that's why I say thank you to the Great One, because I have so much to be thankful for. That's an elder.
In our culture, use counts. How can we learn to value age and wisdom?
Very interesting question you ask. I worked with the United Nations for many years as an elder. I traveled all over the world. And I talk about climate change. Because where I come from, my land which is my grandmother's land, or my ancestors' land. They had lived there for about 6,000 years. Same village. So it's a very ancient place. And then it's right next to the big ice, 1 kilometer away. The big ice is there. One of the fingers of the big ice was 1,500 meters tall. That's bigger than the big high rises in München. And that wall is now less than 20 meters. That's 1,500, now down to less than 20 meters. The big ice is melting very badly, because the way you live in Bali, in Bavaria, in Germany, in England, in US, Canada, all over the world, the way you and I will live on Earth, we cause that melting. And so I talk about it all over the world. And then one day I went home. My father had died, and I went home to my mother. And that evening, I was going to be meeting the elders. My mother invited the elders to come. And I said to my mother that I want to quit. I don't want to do that anymore. And she looked at me and said, "Tell me." I said, "I talk all over the world, but nobody changes. Everybody gives me applause and, but nobody changes. And I don't want to be there anymore." So my mother looked at me, and then she got up from her chair. Of course, when your mother gets up, you get up too. And then my mother took my hands, and she looked into my eyes, and she's that short, beautiful woman. And she says, "My son, you're just going to have to change your ways." I can hear that. And said, "You're just going to have to learn to melt the ice in the heart of man. Only by melting the ice in the heart of man, man will have a chance to change and begin using his knowledge wisely." And then when she stopped, I shook her hand, because I opened my eyes. My mom has still eyes closed. She opened them, and I asked her, "How?" And my mother closed her eyes again. So I closed my eyes, and we're still holding hands. And all she said, "My son, you're just going to have to change your ways. You're just going to have to learn to melt the ice in the heart of man. Only by melting the ice in the heart of man, man will have a chance to change and begin using his knowledge wisely." And that's it. She shook her hands, I opened my eyes, and she smiled, beautiful smile, went to the kitchen. So now I realize that you and I, we know so much. You are a very highly educated person. I have a college degree. So I realize that you and I, we have become very highly educated people in the Western world, in European and in North American and the rest of the world, China and Russia. We have never been so much educated now, but we have not learned to use incredible knowledge we have wisely. How do we know that? We are still polluting the world really, really badly. If you go to the waters in Bali, you see plastic everywhere. On the streets, plastic everywhere. Nobody cleans it up. And then they burn them. And then, of course, then the air is full of particles of plastic, which you breathe. And now it's part of your food. So you eat that because you cannot see the particles in the air. And then now your body and your DNA is beginning to change because of the way you live. You know it is not good, but you didn't stop. We all know that plastic is not good for us because it comes from particles of oils, which is not good to consume. But we do that all over the world now. And now because the plastic gradually disintegrates in the ocean, the animals of the ocean eat the plastic, you eat the fish, and then the cows and the pigs also eat the plastic because it comes down in Bavaria from the air. So, but we know already that it's not good. But you and I, we have not stopped it. Why didn't we not stop it? We know so much, but comprehend so little of what we know. That's my father says. You and I, we know so much, but we comprehend very little of what we know. Why do we do that? We are highly educated, civilized human beings. But now we know why. But the hardest thing to do is to change. We are all looking for a better world out there. Or very few look for a better world in here. So now I know that day at my mother's house, I did not quit my job. But then many years later, I quit it. Then I went back, then I quit it. I went back, then I quit it. But now I will go back again. Because I realized that if I quit, I'm not doing my work. Not because I'm better than anybody else, but people do look up to me because I'm an elder. So I do have a responsibility. Not to impress anybody, but to feel good about myself. That's what I do. So now, what will happen from now on? I remember I was at the dinner at United Nations with Ted Turner, the man who started the CNN in United States of America. And I was telling him that auto tires, the rubber in your auto, when you drive on the Autobahn, the Autobahn eats the tire. It shaves off small particles of rubber. That's why you have to change your auto tires every 60,000 kilometers because they worn out. Too much rubber has been shaved off from the Autobahn. But those rubbers, because you have an RPM as you drive, there's an air behind your auto, that goes up in the air. The wind takes them and takes them further up. It becomes part of the jet stream. In the northern hemisphere, there's only one big ice in the northern hemisphere. It's on my country in Greenland. The big ice is minus 40 Celsius. It's very cold. So the rubber from the Autobahn in Bavaria comes up there. It freezes and becomes too heavy and falls down to the big ice. So now in 2021, the big ice in the springtime is black from auto tires. I was telling that to Ted Turner. He said, "Uncle, you're crazy. I never heard that before." Now the scientists have proven that we have many millions and millions and millions, no, many billions of autos around the world. And that rubber is melting the big ice of Greenland. And that rubber goes to the ocean, and the fish eat that rubber. Now, in Western North America, the salmon locks are dying from auto tires. We've known that for a long, long time, but we didn't change. So, what are we doing with our knowledge? Why don't we become wiser? I was on CNN flew to Greenland to make film about me, and they told me, "Oh, Uncle, we hear that you can see sand from Sahara on the big ice and sand from Mojave Desert in North America." I said, "Yes, we can do that." So they asked, "Could you show us where you can see that?" So I went out on a walk to some of the walls of the big ice, and I was so lucky. I couldn't cross the river, and the big ice falls down constantly, so it's too dangerous. What I saw a streak, maybe 100 meters long, red sand on the wall of the big ice. That's from Sahara. And then I walked down for another maybe a kilometer. There was a streak of brown sand from Mojave Desert. Sand from Mojave Desert, that's about 10,000 kilometers away. And Sahara, about 10,000 kilometers away. Fly from there to Greenland. That's how strong the winds have changed. The sand, not feather, sand flying from Sahara to Greenland. That's how much things have changed around you and me. That's just the environment you and I will live in. Then, of course, we go and seek out for solutions out there in spiritual practices, religious understanding, listen to lectures. Very few Barbara, very few look in here. What can I do to change me? I'm getting to be older now. And I realized that solutions for my life is not out there in Bavaria, in California, in Tokyo, in Bali. It's in here. But I spent a lot of time traveling the world to understand me. I never went to the mirror to look at me, to see what I can see inside me. And it's really, really interesting what's happening around us. As you know, the beautiful country of Israel and Palestine has been at war with each other since Second World War in the name of their religions and in the understanding of race differences. And this is 2021. We still kill each other in the name of religion. This is 2021 in the month of May. We still kill each other in the name of religion. Why do we do that? Why do mankind do that? When will you and I grow up and begin using our knowledge wisely? When should we start? Why didn't we start yesterday? Small children were killed in the name of religion. Religions are so beautiful. From Abrahamic era to Baha'u'llah, all 9 big religions of the world. So incredibly beautiful. As beautiful as they are, we still kill each other. And in the name of politics, we destroy each other's lives. Why do we do that? In this beautiful country, United States of America, they don't like yellow people. They don't like white people. They don't like red people. And they don't like black people. And they say they are the highest educated people in the world. They don't like each other because of their politics. When will we grow up and begin using our knowledge wisely? When shall we do that? When should we begin? Where should we begin? So in my work as a shaman, I realize that this is in here. My grandmother says that my depth, she says, my son, you are deeper inside yourself than the deepest of oceans of earth. I must be very deep because they're more than 11 kilometers deep of the ocean. And then she will say, you big sky inside you is bigger than the big sky above you. And if you ever come to my country in wintertime, I will show you where there's no electricity up there. And you can see the sky as nature created it. And it is enormous. What my grandmother says that you, Barbara, inside your big sky are bigger than the big sky above you. Can you imagine how big you must be? And because you're a woman, you are far more complex than a man like me. I'm just a simple man. Because you are a mother, you can be a mother. You are much more complex than man will ever be. So your big sky inside you, not only is it bigger than the big sky above you, but it is much more complex than the man's sky. So at the end of the day, Barbara, I thought maybe one day I will look into the mirror and look at myself to see, who am I? Why did I allow the white man to put me down because I'm a native person? Why did I allow them to take my land? Why did I allow them to put me in a reservation? Why did the native people of Bali and the area down there, why are they not recognized? Indigenous people. Why are the Aborigines of Australia not recognized? They know much more than the white man will ever know. My grandmother says that in the East, when the sun comes up and she leaves the contour of the earth, the sun becomes yellow. Now we have learned that there are yellow people on this earth. Isn't that amazing? You are living right there now amongst the yellow people of the Far East. And then in the South, when sunshine highest upon us, she's always white. Now we have learned there are actually white people on this earth. And in the West, when the sun sets, she is always red. Now we have learned that there are actually red people on this earth, and those are the indigenous people of the world. Then at night, it's always black. Now we have learned that there are actually black people on this earth. Isn't it amazing? We are the citizen of one single earth. We call her Angakkorsuaq, Mother Earth. There's only one. But mankind, for some unknown reasons, is having a hard time to recognize each other and treat each other equally, respectfully, and with great joy. What did we do wrong, you and I? What did you and I do wrong to create that atmosphere that when you walk in Berlin, remember we invited many foreign workers to help us in Germany? So now, many generations later, they live there as Germans, where they look different, and we don't like them. In Denmark, there are 30,000 Eskimos living in Denmark, and they treat us so badly, because they look different. In Canada, Native people are treated so badly because they're Native people. In the United States of America, they don't like each other. Every day, they kill each other. In Amazonia, the big farmers just shoot the Native people. Just shoot, kill, so they can have their land, so they can cut the big trees. That's a lot of money for them. Why do we do that to each other? How can you and I grow to the next level of consciousness so we can have a better world? Should we wait till tomorrow, or could we start today? The solutions, according to the old teachings, is not out there. The solutions you and I were looking for is inside you personally. It's inside me personally. The solutions for the world is not in the mind of the politicians. It's in the spirit of the humans. Oh, oh, oh,
At the moment, the world is in a crisis. What is your prophecy for the future?
This time of year, up north, the rivers are opening up from the lakes. There's thick ice. On the big lake where I come from, the ice would be more than 3 meters thick. But then when the sun shines 24 hours a day, so it's warming up the water. Because of that, it's expanding. Just like when you make tea, you boil the water and she expands. And sooner or later, as the water expands, she will break the ice and rivers come down with chunks of ice with incredible force and a lot of fish. At the end of the river, we will be there to prepare to catch some fish. Because in the winter, we've been eating seal meat and whale meat, but no fish because it's frozen. So we want to catch it. But it's very dangerous because chunks of ice will come down with like enormous force. And when they hit the rocks, they will explode. And many times people will fall in the water and they become the food for the river. And my grandmother says, when your family falls in the river, do not jump into the river to save them. Because if you do, you too will become the food for the river. I told God, I told him many times, now I'm a grandfather. I said, don't you ever let that happen to me. Don't you ever do that to me. If I see my grandchildren falling in the water, I will jump because I love them. Or my grandmother says, don't do that. So I asked, why not? Because if you had to change your ways, she says. You had to learn to say thank you to them. Tell them how much you love them, what a difference they have done in your life, what a gift they have been. And tell them how much you love them. And then wish them well where they're going. They're going to the next world. Where the big river will flow them down and they will drown. They will leave their body, their soul will travel. And then you, Barbara, you had to run up the hill. Because the world which will come after the big river needs you, of your life experiences, the gifts you have, the beauty you carry, the strength you have inside you. That world needs it. Now we have that big river in pandemic of Corona. It's so interesting. How many people have died? How many people are sick? And then we don't take it seriously. They fight about it all over, mask or no mask, distance or no distance. And people just die. You cannot help them, because if you go and help them, you get infected and you too will become ill. So it goes on like that. The world which is coming after is very interesting. My prayer is that you and I, we will have learned to do things differently after the pandemic. I begin to doubt mankind will have learned anything. Here where I am now, I'm in Ottawa, Canada. They're looking forward to having dinner in the restaurant. With no masks, no social distancing. But still, the variant of Corona is still very big. But people are tired of being alone. They want to mingle with other people. They want to walk down in Marienplatz, in the München. They want to walk around and shop around. So we will repeat the same thing. What did we learn from pandemic? Not very much. We will just look forward to the end of the pandemic, and we will do the same thing as we had done before. We forget to go to the next level. The next level is a new consciousness, new awareness about myself and the world I live in. You and I, we cannot change the world. She's too big. But you and I, we can change the world in which you and I will live. You live in Bali, you can change the world of Bali. I can change the world of Ottawa. That's all we can do. Like-minded people, like people who are listening to your conversation, like-minded people can get together and have a bigger influence on a bigger world. Just like this ceremony. Life is a ceremony in itself, worthy celebrating with a ceremony, which means that your life and the life of me and the life of the people who listen to us right now, their life is worth celebrating with a ceremony. So we asked my grandmother, what is a ceremony? And she would say that it's something Barbara would do from her heart, which brings her joy. And she repeated and repeated and begin to develop and evolve it, and it grows and grows. Something you do. And as you and I, we know, anything growing, sooner or later, a bud will be born. And that bud will begin to open. And that's the flower of Barbara's ceremony. And of course, when the flower opens up, she will come to a complete blossom, completely open, inviting the sun, and there will be seeds. Every flower has that. But because you live in Bali, winds of change will come upon you. And then it will blow away the seeds of your ceremony. And then somewhere in your world, another ceremony will be born. It stems from you, but it's no longer yours. You started it, but it's no longer yours. Now, that's how ceremonies grow. Life is a ceremony in itself, worthy celebrating with a ceremony every single day. And then when we begin to do that, we begin to create an incredible circle. This is a circle. The circle which has no beginning, no ending, in which we all belong. The beauty of the circle is that we cannot see each other's backs. And the strength of the circle is that we can only see each other's beauty. Can you imagine to live in that circle? Where no one ever will put you down behind your back? Where no one will ever backbite about you? My grandmother says when we were growing up that the greatest illness of mankind is not tuberculosis. It was at the time, the pandemic in the world. She says the greatest illness of mankind is that you and I, we put each other down behind our backs. We backbite. That's the greatest illness of mankind. When will we stop? When should we stop? We want a better humans on this earth. We want people who are happy and joyful beings, who chuck their heart when they meet or when they hug, sniff at each other. Or do we want cold handshake or not at all looking at each other? There's so many simple questions which could change the world. The future looks brilliant. In the time to come, in your lifetime, when you become old like me, there will be no more wars on earth. Can you imagine a world without wars? Where you can walk amongst people without fearing the worst? Right now, as a native person, I wouldn't want to go to the United States of America. Because as a native person, I would be hunted down by the white supremacists. Because I'm a native person. But they took my land, they put me in a reservation, and they still hunt me down. This is 2021. When will we learn how to live together? When will we learn not to have war because of religion? When will we learn to feed each other? When we will learn to share with each other what we have? The future is brilliant and beautiful, but it all depends on you personally, not the politicians, not the leaders, but you. Because of pandemic, I walk a lot. I have now walked more than 5,000 kilometers in 1 year. And I learned that when I see some people, I touch my heart. And it is so interesting. Now people, when they see me, they touch their heart and give me their heart, because we cannot touch each other. We talk in distance. And people said, how beautiful that you touch your heart for me. Maybe that's what we could do to each other. There are many ways of getting a better world, but it begins with every one of you. Not me, not you. Each and every one person. That's where it begins. The world peace will not come until you and I, we have peace inside ourselves. So at the end, the future which is coming is incredible. At the big river, my grandmother says, many will die, many will barely survive, few will have a life. Many will die. How many? Probably more than half of the population of Earth will die. Then many will barely survive. How many? Another half? Few will have a life. Is it true? I believe those ancient teachings. They have lived with these teachings for 6,000 years. And everything they have said so far has become alive. I had to remind myself, and I want to tell you, I come from the only land on earth where people live, where there has never been war. Anyone from anywhere on earth, when they come to visit, they will walk on the oldest crust of earth, which is my land, and the only land where there has never been war. Imagine yourself walking on Mother Earth, where she has never felt killings. There has been many deaths. Death comes in many ways, but there has never been war. So I welcome you to my land. If you fly, you go over North Pole, then you missed my land. So you had to jump off the airplane before the North Pole, just before 700 kilometers before North Pole. Then you land on the land. And there, right now, there's 24-hour sunlight. But in late September, when the dark returns, I will show you the Northern Lights. That's your ancestors dancing for you. When you remember someone you loved and who loved you, that person will become so happy that immediately he or she will invite all the family members. And then they will invite all the friends they have. Then they will invite all the relations they have. And they will dance for you. And that's how we know that the next world is this close. Not in heaven. In heaven, you need a big uniform of astronaut. Can you imagine your great-grandmother in a big uniform of astronaut? I cannot imagine my grandmother like that. So, but in heaven, you cannot live. The next world is right here. It's for you and I to be connected to them, they're part of our life. No one can live without the roots. Not humans, not animals, not plants, not minerals. None. Everyone has a root. And that's your family.